So, Nick, are you going to take it away?
Sure, yeah, thanks. And yes, thanks, Gloria, for the really nice introduction. So we'll get started with our presentation, which is titled 20,000 Sensors Under the Sea, Ocean Networks Canada, and K-12 Education. And so before we begin, we'll follow up with what Jen was saying with our own land and sea acknowledgement. So uh, like uh, like Gloria was mentioning, I live in Victoria now, but I grew up on the mainland of Vancouver. But I'm familiar with living here on the west coast of British Columbia, so I definitely, really value the connections that we have here, and I've learned a lot about Indigenous engagement from working at Ocean Networks Canada. So that's kind of what this territory acknowledgement is talking about how we work together with Indigenous nations. So we acknowledge and respect the Lekwungen, Songhees, Esquimalt peoples on whose territory the university stands. And when I say university, I mean University of Victoria, because Ocean Networks Canada is a University of Victoria initiative. And the Lekwungen and Saanich peoples whose historical relationships with the land and sea continue to this day. And we also acknowledge the Indigenous communities with whom we have the honor to partner on coastal monitoring and data management solutions.
All right. So you've seen our lovely mugs, and here we are in still format. And this is I'm pictured here when I was on the EV Nautilus in 2023. I spent 3 weeks out on the boat, and let me tell you, I get seasick. Didn't think so. I've been in all sorts of weather on the BC ferries. I've even done like Hecate Strait, totally fine. Mm-mm. Yeah, I get sick. Uh, it was an experience. It was great. And I'm holding a piece of whale bone. It was a benthic whale fall experiment. How about you, Nick? What are you doing on that dino?
Yeah, so this was from a conference in December that I went to, and it was a geoscience conference. And of course, this was one of the big highlights of the exhibitor hall was this booth that had this animatronic dinosaur that you could ride on. So that was pretty cool. So it moved, and then it also made like, I don't know, growling sounds, and it was pretty fun.
I don't think I remembered that it made growling sounds.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, we're going to do some things tonight. We're going to talk about ONC. Some of you, we know we were bantering a little bit back and forth. So, my job tonight is to try to share something that maybe you didn't know. So, Kim, I'm looking at you. Like, when you give me a thumbs up, you're like, or one of these, oh, then I'll know I've done my job because I'm hoping we teach you something you haven't heard already. The 10 times we've connected. But we are going to talk about ONC in general. We're going to talk about what K to 12 does. And then we're going to share with you because we figured knowing the kind of folk who are part of NAME, that maybe there's some opportunity for us to connect on some different things. So how can you get involved? And Nick decided to, he put the presentation together and I was playing around and I thought, oh man, we got to explain where this 20,000 sensors under the sea, because it's actually a lie. We don't have 20,000 sensors under the sea. So right off the hop there, we're lying to you. But the reason why is because of this old book and movie. You may recognize Jules Verne's very famous 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And we're operated by an observatory council, and they provide guidance and thought-provoking things. And apparently, one of the observers on the observatory council said, we really should call ONC 20,000 Sensors Under the Sea. So that's why we kind of riffed off that for our presentation title. But let's take a look at what ONC is because we'll get to all of those sensors. Nick, what do we got here?
Yeah. And I guess I would also mention, you mentioned that we don't have 20,000 sensors under the sea. So I would say that it's probably more on the scale of 1,000, right? Which is not 20,000, but it's still a lot, about 1,000. Yeah. And we'll actually come to that later in the presentation. But to first start off about what is Ocean Networks Canada? Why is it necessary or why is it important, right? So, we are an organization that focuses on ocean exploration. And so, of course, there's kind of a standard way to do ocean exploration, which is usually using a ship, right? But there are some different barriers and challenges associated with that. So, here's a list of some of them. So, for example, it's quite expensive to use a research vessel out at sea. One estimate we have, it's about $1 per second to have a research vessel out at sea, so that's pretty expensive. Monitoring instruments that are connected to the ship can only collect data during the expedition. So what I mean by that is you're out at sea for 2 weeks collecting data. If you are dragging some instrument behind you to monitor the ocean, you only get the data just from that one time period. And then the opposite is if you leave something behind the ship and you leave it and come back later, that can work too. But some of those instruments, if they're not connected to satellite or something like that, you won't actually get the data until you recover it at the end. And sometimes if the instrument stopped working at some point in the meantime, you won't actually even know until you go to pick it up later. So there's some issues potentially. And just to follow up and close the loop on that, yeah, so like I mentioned, if an instrument breaks while it's in the water, you might need another trip to repair or replace it. And expedition success is quite dependent on many factors, most importantly, the weather, but also people and resources. So for instance, ONC, we had a research expedition, or I should say maintenance expedition that was out at sea just recently working on some of our underwater equipment. And they actually had to cut it like a week short because it was just too stormy. I don't know for anybody here in like the BC, Vancouver, Victoria area. Yeah, I think it was like a week or two ago, right, Lauren, where it was quite stormy. It was raining every day for a long period. There was kind of like a torrential downpour, and that was when the expedition was out. So they had to cut it short by quite a bit.
I think I was in Regina
Yeah,
enjoying snow while
yeah.
everyone was here enjoying all that storm. And I've, since I joined in 2019, we've done lots of presentations with groups about remotely operated vehicles, and that's one of the ways that we do traditional ocean exploration is using tools like ROVs. And the students always ask, "Well, have you ever lost one?" We're like, "Oh, no, no, no." But actually, it did happen once, and another ship was nearby and had to bring their ROV to recover the ROV. So yeah, it can be pretty gnarly out there. And maybe just while we can, throw in the chat if you've ever been out at sea before, if you've done any research expeditions. Just share with us, let us know, and I'll move this slide forward as those answers come in. So, because of all of those challenges that Nick mentioned, the idea of installing permanent ocean bottom observatories and coastal weather stations is a great way of mitigating some of that stuff. Oh, yay! Oh, yeah, of course you have, Jen. Right on. And so instruments are monitored remotely and all that data comes in. And then it can be quality checked right there and then. We have our data scientists. One of my favorite stories is Megan was taking a look at some oxygen sensors. I think she's like, "What is going on? Like the data just doesn't look like she expects it to look." And we do have a whole floor, a whole team of people that this is what their job is, to look at the data and see what's going on. And found out the next time our operations team went out, it was actually biofouling. So a whole bunch of, I think they were a variety of different anemones just decided to make their home all over the sensors. Awesome. Oh, look at this. We have some sailors, NOAA teachers. Awesome. Oh, wow. Wooden boat. Kim, right on. Um, so yeah, so this is how we kind of are mitigating those challenges and bringing that data stream in all the time. And this enables, of course, this long-term measuring. It's not research dependent, weather dependent. We're getting data all the time. And the good thing with that is that then the data once it can be checked, it's accessible online and it's free. We are Canada's largest funded science initiative through the Canadian Foundation for Innovation. Nick, you're muted.
Thank you for that. Sorry. We were
No
talking
worries.
a little bit of, yeah, we were talking a little bit about this technology, and we're going to see some of that technology in action in a second here. But just to introduce the type of technology that we're talking about. So on the right there, we have a photo of an ROV, or a remotely operated vehicle. So these are the types of pieces of technology that we use. So this is, yeah, what we use to install instruments on the seafloor, and also to do maintenance, to fix things. And then on the left there, this underwater shot, that's called a node. So that's basically like a big power box that we put underwater, and it's completely waterproof. And so that big cable that you see in the foreground, that would be the power that is coming from the node, and then off screen, it would be going to, a big suite of instruments that are going to be on the seafloor there. So that's how we connect everything, is with cables and these kind of junction boxes called nodes.
Right on. And Nick, just to check, did we want sound on this?
We have no, yeah, these are muted, so we can
Okay.
chat over them. Yeah. So this is an example of our technology. So this is what it would look like from the perspective of the remotely operated vehicle. The ROV has a camera on it. And so that's what the pilot of the ROV uses, this camera, to see what's going on underwater. And so we see in the foreground those two arms there, which are the arms of the ROV. So they're quite dexterous, and they can do this really fine-tuning work like this, grabbing something like this and plugging something in, or pulling something out, removing and replacing things. And we can also see that even though we have this very artificial thing on the seafloor, a lot of animals and other, marine life has made its home on this technology. So it's a busy place.
Yeah, I wonder even if we could, how many different phyla do we have represented in there?
Hmm. Quite
We
a
got
few, I'm sure.
mollusca, we got some chordates in there. What are the crinodes? I can't remember what phyla they are. Are they echinoderms? I don't know. Yeah, they are. Thanks, Kim. Right on. Okay. And then of course, when we're out at sea, sometimes we find garbage. Lots of garbage in the weirdest places. And when we can, when possible, we'll pick things up. But sometimes, when we investigate further, if they are inhabited, we do not pick them up. We leave them be. So we let the trash stay. Um, maybe you can make out the egg sacs dangling just under the lid there. So we've got I think the team named it Cracky the octopus. So you can get that video from YouTube as well. So we collect all sorts of different kinds of data. We have instruments like the cameras, the ice profilers, we have fluorometers, coastal radar as well. So stuff that's not just on the seafloor either. So, we say land-based and ocean observing technologies, because we got that radar stuff too. Big array off Tofino area, looking for specifically for irregularities that could be a tsunamis and things. So yeah.
So yeah, introducing some of the different types of instruments that we use. So Lauren was just mentioning some of them, some of the examples of instruments that we use underwater, but here we'll focus on just a few in a little bit more detail. So one of them, for example, we would call it a CTD, which is an acronym that stands for conductivity, temperature, depth. So those are three things that this instrument can measure for us. And in the photo on the left there, it's the black cylinder that's connected to the red cable there. So that's a CTD that's installed on this platform before it's going to go in the water. And so the reason why these three measurements, conductivity, temperature, depth, the reason why those are important is because those can tell us a lot about the overall quality of the seawater, the overall parameters of the seawater. So the graph that we have on the right there has some of this information that you would get from a CTD. So for example, it has the salinity of the seawater is in green. And so the reason why we're measuring conductivity is actually because how conductive the water is, that tells us how much salt there is in the water. So conductivity and salinity are related in that way. And then we also have temperature, which is the red line at the bottom. And then we can also measure the depth, which is related to the density. So we have that blue line in the middle there, that's the density of the water. And so as you go down in the water column, it's going to get more dense because there's more water pressure pressing down on the water. And so density and depth are actually related in that way. So by measuring conductivity, temperature, and depth, we can actually derive a lot of the other qualities of the water.
Right.
And
One of
one
the,
more,
yeah. Are you doing this one, Nick? I lost my little guide.
it's okay. One of
You're
the
doing it. Okay, go.
other, yeah, that's okay. I'll pass it on to you after this, but one of the other instruments that we can talk about is accelerometers. So this might not be something you immediately think of when you think of ocean monitoring, but another thing we actually monitor for is earthquakes. So we can put these accelerometers in the ocean floor. So you can see in that picture there, what we do is we actually drill a hole in the sea floor and put a pipe in there. And then we drop this, well, gently place this accelerometer in the pipe. And then we fill the empty gap there with glass beads to kind of keep the accelerometer in place. And so when there's shaking from an earthquake, the accelerometer will detect it. And you can see with the content on the right there that we actually have what's called an earthquake data dashboard, where we're actually recording all of the earthquakes that our sensors are detecting. And the reason why this network of accelerometers is important is because if there's shaking coming from an earthquake in the Pacific Ocean, we can actually detect that in the ocean before it reaches land. Because, you imagine the epicenter of the earthquake is somewhere in the ocean. Then we have these sensors near the coast of Vancouver Island. So they're kind of in between the earthquake's epicenter and us here on land. So for an earthquake in the Pacific Ocean, we could get somewhere around 40 seconds of advanced warning, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you automate systems to automatically react when an earthquake is detected, there are a lot of things you can do. For example, shutting down bridges and tunnels, alerting fire departments and opening the bay doors and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and just one thing I wanted to add about that earthquake data dashboard is it's just data from the last year, so the most recent year, and it's only magnitudes of 4 and above. So it's not going to display all of the data. You'll want to get that from Oceans 3.0 data portal. But it is, if some of you are in the classroom setting, the data dashboard is a nice digestible way of looking at the most recent data. All right, hydrophones. Who doesn't love hydrophones? Underwater microphone. I think the reason why we love hydrophones is this. Right? Just saying hello. You got it. So we get to hear beautiful marine mammals and maybe not so beautiful marine mammals, but ones that also make noise. Um, and the hydrophones will also pick up, they're passive, they're passively listening. So any sounds, and more there's interest in understanding, capturing, measuring anthropogenic sounds, trying to figure out what is our impact in the soundscape. And there's a great lab at the University of Victoria, the WANUS lab, and they're doing lots of research on fish sounds. Over 1,000 species of fish, it blew my mind, make sound. So, sound is really important for lots of animals for a whole bunch of different reasons. So, understanding our impact is one of those things that we can do when we have cool instruments like hydrophones. And interestingly, when you look at all the different kinds of data that we capture, it's actually the hydrophones that are the most data intense. The hydrophone data is the largest data source that we have. I'm surprised by that. I thought maybe the video data would be, but it's actually the hydrophone data. So it's a huge component and some interesting projects going on to use AI and machine learning to try to pick out the interesting parts of the sound clips So some, kind of cutting edge research exploring how we can pick out those interesting pieces within the sound clips. All right. And we do have all of this fire hose of data. That's what our colleague Monica likes to say. We have it all coming in through our data management portal. It's actually designed in-house, so we have a whole team of software developers, and they create this Oceans 3.0. Anyone can join it for free. When you create your free login, it allows you to download the data, select, obviously select the different parts of the data, but then it'll have that history for you so you can take a look at what kind of data sources you want. And we can help curate some of that as well because, as previously mentioned, it is a fire hose. There's lots of it. So when we take a look at the numbers, there we go. We got over 930 sensors, but we're measuring many, many different parameters, and we get 1.6 petabytes of data. In 23, 24, we've got people around the world writing articles and reporting out on what's happening in the ocean as a result of the data that's there for them. And then in terms of what our department does, since 2022, we've engaged with 53,000 plus educators, students, and the general public, and the various things that have taken place in that time frame. We've had over 3,000 news stories printed, broadcast, or online. So lots of things happening. And we want to play this. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, so we're just going to show the first minute or so of this video, which I think is really cool because this is from 2024, but this is one of the expeditions that we're a partner on with Ocean Exploration Trust. I believe Monica, our coworker, was on this expedition. And yeah, the summertime is always our big expedition season. And so we have these cool research ships going out that we're partnered on.
All right. So we've done stuff, good stuff, interesting stuff. The photogrammetry is a kind of a unique study with that whale fall. So I was out at sea the year before this, and it was kind of neat to see. There's actually the same kind of tube worms that you find at hydrothermal vents. We're also finding those at the whale falls, which is really interesting. So and kind of unexpected. So that's hence one of the reasons why we want to go back, or researchers are interested in like, okay, what's similar about these environments? So neat stuff. All right. So what do we
So
do?
yeah, so we've talked about Ocean Networks Canada as a whole and like what the organization does, but let's talk about what our team K to 12 education does.
Do we want to do a quick pause for any questions about um any questions about ONC in general before we move on to this part? No? I thought I just put it out there.
Good to ask.
Good to ask. All right, take it away, Nick.
Okay. So we'll start with like a brief summary, and then Lauren will get into some details about what we do. But just as an introduction, there are a lot of things that the K-12 team at ONC does, but in general, we promote ONC and the data that ONC collects. And we do that through a number of ways, including delivering classroom presentations, like you can see in the photo on the right there. That's Monica and I in a classroom. We also present at educator professional development events like Teacher Pro D conferences. We also create educator resources that we can feature at Pro D events, for example. And we also host ONC-led events that we've hosted and created ourselves. But we do more than just that. We also promote ONC by collaborating with partner organizations, participating in conferences, and representing ONC at public engagement events. And the photo on the right there is an example of this, because this is an event called Earth Science for Society. It's in Calgary, Alberta each year. And so we go there as an organization each year and present at a booth. And there's hordes of youth that come by, could be up to 2,000 youth that come through this event in about 2.5 or 3 days. So it's a very high volume of youth that come through. And we have our coworker Monica, and also our current intern is not the right word, is it? What is the right word? Like contracted staff member, I'll say, Kasea
Kasea.
as well.
We could just
Yeah.
say Kasea.
Sure, yeah. And our other team member, Kasea, there, yes, doing some different hands-on activities that you can see on the table.
Right on. Yeah, hordes of youth. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we do our best to integrate the data. Oh, whoa. That hagfish just got slurped up right there on my side, but it looks like it's not showing on yours. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, good.
It is, yeah.
You're seeing it. Perfect. That's the kind of data that we like to share with youth. Because I don't think when you're talking about high school students, they might not realize the importance of video data as an actual data source. So we do talk about how, when you put things on the internet, it can be watched anywhere. So the hagfish being slurped up it was a northern elephant seal, was actually spotted by youth in the Ukraine. So interesting stories like that definitely youth like to hear about. And also, any idea what this colorful graph is on the left? Throwing it out there. Oh yeah, let's see. Okay, BC Fairies, you got it. Good one, Jen. What are we measuring? Are we measuring how tasty the white spot burger is? Oh, now I've got myself a craving.
The info is on there, but it might be hard to read.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny. It's a thermocyanograph, so we're actually taking a look at how the saltiness changes as you go through that trip. And the ferries are a perfect conduit or house for our instruments. They do the same route every day, many times a day. So, as scientists, like, yeah, we want our instruments on that machine. So we have holes in ferries. I think we're up to 3 different ferries that we've integrated our instruments into. And then you get these beautiful, colorful things, and you can have all sorts of great discussions with youth about, are we seeing that color change? What's happening here? Great Kickstarter to introduce different topics. All right. And we do classroom presentations. So we will do them virtually like this, or in person in a variety of different school districts. So we've got a warming ocean, which is kind of our climate change centered module, hydrothermal vents, Lohiwe or clam gardens, which was actually developed in community up in Campbell River area, with Homolko and Wewakam knowledge holders. We've got a marine biodiversity topic, exploring ROVs, seismic studies, which integrates knowledge from Nuu-chah-nulth Tribal Council members on the west coast of Vancouver Island. And we developed your coastal connection last year because we were realizing we were getting around to some interiors places where they don't have maybe a daily connection to the ocean. So we thought, okay, well, we'll make your coastal connection. We'll help people understand how they are connected to the ocean no matter where they are. And then we started getting all sorts of people by the ocean booking that presentation too. And we're like, oh, that's not what we expected. So makes for interesting times. Uh, and we offer educator professional development through different workshops. Also things like the NAME conference. We were at the NAME conference last year and met some of you in Machosen. And we also do this at provincial and national conferences, school district events, also sometimes with certain partners, and also pre-service teachers as well. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the Prodi at the end. One of our resources is the Ocean Sense program. So this is actually where we work with community members and knowledge holders, and we integrate knowledge that they want to share with us with ocean science concepts and data exploration. And then each module is created, and we're in the big push right now to get them put into this beautifully designed template so you can download them and use them in your classroom if you're a classroom teacher. But you're not going to find too much on our website quite yet. We're in this crunch to try to get things finished up. And I don't think I'll play the video right here, but there are videos, there are worksheets. Actually, Kim's class, thank you, helped test something out for me. So I figured out all of the different things that I had made wrong in the worksheet. So thank you to Kim and your students there. So what have I got? Videos, slide decks, worksheets, all sorts of different ways of getting the information out there for the youth. And we have different events that are kind of our flagship events. So we have our Ocean Science Symposium in a couple weeks. We're actually heading out on the road. So we travel to a variety of different communities and bring lessons and activities there. It's not something you can definitely get in touch with us and say, hey, we'd like you to bring your Ocean Science Symposium to our community. That's a possibility, but thus far we've been kind of working with our different community partners or places where we have installations first, making sure that we circulate around to those communities. We also have our Ship to Shore program, which is pictured at the bottom there, when Monica and Nick went to Petchiadat Nation and connected with an expedition that was out at sea.
And I guess I'm curious, maybe it's a secret, Lauren, but do you want to mention where you're going for the OSS in a couple weeks?
Oh, we're heading up to Haida Gwaii.
Yeah, I
No
think that's pretty
secret.
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's the Ocean Science Symposium, I should say. Yeah, in
yeah.
Haida Gwaii in a couple weeks. But to talk about this, so on the previous slide, we were mentioning the Ship to Shore program, and then here's a little bit more information about that. So yeah, this is a program that ONC leads, where we have a live connection where we connect with vessels and the folks who are out at sea and connect them in real time with, for example, classrooms and other youth groups. So that the youth can directly ask their questions to the folks at sea and learn and talk in real time to, scientists and engineers and communication specialists and lots of different diverse roles that are out at sea. So on the right there, the top photo, you can see a screenshot from an example of a video call that we did. So there's myself and Monica at the top, and then on the right there, there's three of the folks who were on the vessel at the time. And yeah, just in general, we have these classroom engagements, and it's a really great opportunity because how it works is the students can type in their questions into a Q&A chat, and then we, as the ONC staff, we will moderate by reading out those questions from the Q&A chat, reading them out to our guests on the vessel. And so we can kind of like lump similar questions together and that kind of thing to drive the conversation. But yeah, it's a really great and really unique opportunity to talk to people out at sea. And of course, the most common questions are you getting seasick? Have you seen any whales? What's the food like? You know, all of those questions, right? But of course, then there can also be questions like, you know, what's the coolest thing you've seen so far? Or what's the thing that surprised you the most? Or, you know, something like that, right? So any question that the students want to ask about the expedition, they can learn about. So it's a really great opportunity. And in general, this takes place during our spring and summer expedition season. So we'll talk about a few other collaborations that we do with partner organizations. So we're actually involved with the planning of a lot of different major events, and we sit on the planning committee for a lot of these the organizing committee for a lot of these events. So for example, Ocean Week Victoria is something that I sit on the planning committee for, and Science Rendezvous is something that Lauren sits on the planning committee for. So those are examples of two events in Victoria that are annual events. Ocean Week takes place in June. It's a full week. Science Rendezvous is coming up soon. It's actually in the second week of May. So that's really coming up soon. That one it will be at UVic and Camosun College. So for anybody in the Victoria area, that's like a really huge science fair sort of event for youth. And then another partnership that we have is actually with Actual, who does summer camps in Northern Canada. And so we actually work with their educators. We kind of train the trainers. And so they can use the content that we train them on, which is ONC content, and they can use that in their summer outreach camp for youth in a whole bunch, dozens of communities in Northern Canada. So it's some really important partnerships that we have. And the photos there, the top one is from Ocean Week, and the bottom one there is from Science Rendezvous a couple of years back.
Yeah, and Science Rendezvous is a national initiative. I don't know if there's anything similar in the States, but it is, you know, the universities kind of open doors, and then it's an invitation for faculty and graduate students and different labs to kind of host fun, family-friendly activities throughout the day. So kind of open doors for the public. It's a really interesting event. Lots of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And the other events that we attend include conferences, so a pretty big variety of conferences too. So we would have a booth in the exhibitor hall, and we also are sometimes presenters at these conferences too, including educational professional development conferences. So here in the Victoria area, some examples are Tapestry, Catalyst, and MyPETA, and those would be like BC provincial professional development conferences for educators. And then also there's outreach and engagement conferences, for example, the First Nations Education Steering Committee Conference and the Canadian Association of Science Centers Conference. And the CASC one, the second one there is actually coming up soon, so we'll be at that one. And then we are also involved in scientific research conferences. So for example, the American Geophysical Union Conference, that's where I was when I took that dinosaur photo that was in the intro. I was at the American Geophysical Union Conference. And then also something like Ocean Sciences Meeting is also a pretty big one as well.
Yeah, and I'll just add that large science research organizations are realizing the importance of engagement and outreach. And so lo and behold, they're actually having whole sessions dedicated to how people are talking about science in with the general public and bridging that gap for science careers, for example.
Mhm. And then I'll just wrap up this part by saying that, you know, earlier we were talking about things like Science Rendezvous and Ocean Week Victoria, where we're involved directly with the planning of those organizations or those events rather. We're also obviously involved in events where we're not involved in the planning of it, but we are just invited as exhibitors, right? As presenters. So we're very happy, of course, for those events too. So some examples of those are Earth Science for Society in Calgary, which we mentioned earlier. Another example is the School District 61 Career Fair, which is the Victoria School District is 61. So that career fair is actually coming up soon. It's later this month, so I'll be there. And then another one is the All Native Basketball Tournament, which is in Prince Rupert every year. And you might be wondering, well, you're an ocean science organization. Why are you going to a basketball tournament? That seems kind of random. And that's a good question. The main reason why we do that is because the All Native Basketball Tournament is kind of the biggest event, one of the biggest events of the year in Prince Rupert. And we actually have a bunch of observatory equipment in the Prince Rupert area. Prince Rupert is on the coast. So we have three observatories actually in that area. So the All Native Basketball Tournament is a great opportunity for community engagement because we can go there. There's plenty of exhibitor booths, so we're one of many booths, but we can go there and tell people about the instrumentation that's in their area and make sure that everybody understands that we're here to help them learn about their local waters and that they can use and access our data anytime they want, and they can use that data to learn about their own local water.
And that learning goes both ways as well. We do a lot of learning ourselves when we meet with community members, people that live and survive off the waters. They know it intimately in their way as well. And interesting fact about the All Native Basketball Tournament is it actually was a result of colonization. When the potlatch was banned, many nations just said, fine, we're not going to meet for potlatch, but we're going to hold basketball tournaments. So they went underground with their potlatch and hosted basketball tournaments. And so that has continued to this day as a celebration of culture through and sport, both together. So let's take a look at ways that you can maybe stay in touch with us. Obviously, access the data. We already mentioned it. It's on the Oceans 3.0 data portal, and it's not a software that we're using from somewhere else. We have a team that's making it. So if there's something you don't like about it, tell us. And there's smart people that can fix things. So also, if there's too much data, tell us. And we won't direct you to those software smart people. We'll see if we can help you. And actually, I'll probably see if Nick can help you because he's really good at getting things out of Oceans 3, probably better than me. I shouldn't say that. My boss is in here, but that's okay. So I did mention before Big Blue and You. This is well, we mentioned educator professional development. So when we go to different conferences, and what we're trying to do now is create one content package for the year. It's usually focuses on middle and high school educators, and it's developed by teachers, us. And what we'll do is we'll package things up and then workshop it throughout the year at various conferences. But then it's also available to you in your school districts, for example, or informal education organizations. If you're interested in a particular topic, you can reach out and we'll give a presentation about the resource that's being pulled together. So this right now is curriculum connections for ocean science integration, and that's the little description. It's probably too much to read, but you can take a look at that on our website. And in past, we've done ocean data deep dive. A couple years ago, we workshopped our Nutsamat, which was our newest ocean sense lesson. And then we worked with the Royal BC Museum 4 years ago and made an Orca inquiry unit. So if you are interested in this, let us know. So teachers have said good things about us. Wow, isn't that special? So in that previous slide, you actually saw a group of pre-service teachers from the University of Victoria, and they said well, they were engaged with the content as well, which is awesome. Yeah, there we go, high school as well. So you can also find us on various social media. That's not going to be us, K to 12, but it is going to be our colleagues in the communications department. And we tend to use a lot of the cool things that the comms team puts together in our educational stuff as well, because it's a great place to point you to You know, if we play a video for you in a session like Cracky the Octopus, for example, you're going to be able to find it on our YouTube channel. And sometimes the latest and greatest of what's happening right now, you'll find on social media. We are also, so just like name, we are also part of the Canadian Network for Ocean Education. That's what CANOE stands for. And we are working on a project called Ocean Education Wednesdays. And when I say we, I literally mean we, as in name and CANOE are working on this project together. We're going to be putting together 6 slide decks. We're just starting out nice and small after a long hiatus and packaging up some content into 3 to 5 slides that are going to be put out on a Wednesday. Go figure, it's right in the name. And in French and in English on a variety of topics. And that's something that we're working on for this year. We're just in the process of waiting on to see if we get endorsement for the UN Decade activity. So hopefully that comes through. And book us for a presentation if you want us to come and check out your classroom. We have had presentations in the United States before. We actually worked with the Tacoma School District 4 years ago, and I think we presented to every class in every grade 5 class in this Tacoma School District that registered with. We talked about remotely operated vehicles, so it is a thing. We can present if you are joining us, zooming in from the States, or reach out. Oh, Nick, this was your slide. I talked right over you. You're so politely just sat there. I see that you put your name on this slide and I missed that.
It's okay. Well, I mean, you said everything that needed to be said, so it's
Oh,
okay.
man.
There's no, yeah, it's all
Mhm.
good. But yeah, we have a booking platform, so you can use the link or the QR code there to get to our booking platform. And then if you place a booking, it comes to me. So yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, thank you for your time. And if you want to reach out and get in touch with us, we have our email addresses there, lhudson or nhamar@oceannetworks.ca. And thanks to Jen and Gloria for inviting us today. And thanks everyone for your time.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. That was such great information. I am always constantly in awe of the stuff that you guys are doing and all the amazing research you guys are doing and how you're communicating it and making it into this really vibrant user experience. And to me, like, I think that's fantastic. So thank you for sharing that, what you guys have done with our teachers and our educators. And now I would love to open it up to our participants. If you guys have any questions, feel free to turn on your camera, unmute yourself, or just type it into the chat. If you're curious about anything that Nick and Lauren have shared or want to know more about any of their resources. Gloria, you have a question?
Questions and comments, I guess. Okay, so you have hydrophones, and I noticed that you mentioned an Orca inquiry unit. That's interesting because, as you probably know, I don't know. I published this book very recently. What is it? Join an Orca Family with Sam and Crystal. And when Steve and I did a presentation out at Malaspina, at the NAME conference this last summer, what we did is we lifted the hydrophone sounds off of somewhere. It may have been you guys, I don't know. But as part of our presentation, after talking about the transient orcas and the southern resident orcas, blah, 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 we played the sounds of the southern resident orcas and the transient orcas and had the audience try to figure out which orcas were which and why. That was a really interesting kind of activity. Their answers were all over everywhere. But of course, the answer in the end was that the southern resident orcas travel in larger groups, like up to 30 or so, and they catch salmon. So they're really noisy. They're chatty. They talk all the time. Whereas the transient orcas have to be really quiet because they're in much smaller groups, but they have to sneak up on their prey because they're after the harbor seals and the sea lions. So anyhow, I don't know where we got those sounds. It may have been from you guys.
I hope so.
Okay. But that was a really nice addition to that presentation. And there was and I was also going to mention, I listened to a YouTube on the sounds of the sperm whale a couple months ago. I don't know if you know about the sounds of sperm whales, but they make the loudest, yeah, Nick does, the loudest sounds of any creature, any living animal. Like they're really, really, really loud. And it was really interesting to listen to those sounds. So anyhow, that's kind of like a high interest thing. It really gets kids really involved. And so I was kind of interested in, what do you do with those sounds with kids? And you have this Orca inquiry unit. Like, what kinds of things do you do in that unit?
The Orca Inquiry Unit was developed with the Royal BC Museum. So we had some activities, they had some activities. So they actually have like a debate. They have information about whether or not orcas should be given by law, should be considered like classified as a basically a human. So
Oh, yeah.
there is one activity that sets students up to do that. And then the activity that ONC contributed is a listening activity with different orca, with different hydrophone recordings and things. So it's a little bit of both. And I can't even remember, it's been so long, I can't remember the exact target grade. I think we picked, we did different activities from grades 4 till 9. And then, you know, pick and choose depending on, up to teachers what they would want to use. Maybe not pull everything because it might not be relevant to their grades and classes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But that sounds like a great activity, Gloria, with the sound. And I did throw in the chat there, the YouTube playlist and our SoundCloud if folks want to listen to any of those recordings.
And I did want to mention that in answering you asked about how do we use sounds in our offerings. I'll also mention that for our public events, we have a hydrophone sound game that we play, which maybe some of you have seen, where we have a series of hydrophone sounds that we play on an iPad and with a speaker, and then the youth can guess what is making that sound. So we have these little cutouts that sit on the table. So there's like there's a sperm whale, there's a killer whale, there's a snowmobile, there's an earthquake, there's a few different options, some living and some not living. And then, yeah, the students or the youth can guess which one is making which sound. And then they can also, yeah, like this. And then they also are looking at these pictures of these spectrograms, which is what you're seeing here, which is like a visualization of the sound. So especially for older youth, they can also learn about how to read this. So learning a little bit about how to interpret data.
Okay, and I just had to pull this one up. So let's just throw it in the chat. What do you think this is? Are you hearing it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in the
That
chat.
like
What do you...
snap. Oh,
or Jen, you can follow Jen's lead. What do you think it is? Oh,
Kim.
good guess, Kim. No, it's not a fish. Snapping shrimp.
That is a good guess about fish, though, because as we've learned from our friends at Fish Sounds, there are fish that kind of sound like that. They have their
Yep.
swim bladders and they use them like a drum, so not far
Yep.
off.
It totally floored scientists. They didn't know what this was. They actually had to pair this with visual data to realize that this is actually a sperm whale echolocating.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so it's kind of a fun one because it's so regular and such a constant pitch that they thought at first they thought it was a boat or something mechanical. Here we go with sperm whale. Just because you said. But normally when you're playing the game like Nick described, you have pictures of what it could be.
Yeah.
We're
So
not
sperm
letting
whale,
you guess
yeah, sperm
randomly.
whale echolocation is one of the options on the table. Yeah, because that'd be pretty wild to pick without that for like a 12-year-old. Like, what is this? But
And
yeah, go
you
ahead.
They
guys were
also,
talking about having or using machine learning to go through all your hydrophone data, and it just reminds me of that Merlin app that can pick out birds. Like you think that
Yeah.
that's on should be on its way for hydrophone stuff because I mean I have my phone out my backyard and it just listens and it's like, oh, that's this kind of bird, and the spectrogram is what reminded me of it because it has that while you're listening to the bird, and so
Hmm.
it seems like that should be like the next step of going through hydrophone data is just,
So
getting Merlin Ocean to go through your
I
stuff.
can I can say two things about that. One is that one of our hydrophone experts, they can actually identify which pod of orcas something is by listening to the sound clip. So not just whether they're transients or residents or that kind of thing, but like specifically what pod it is. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
But then also a friend of mine who I went to school with, so we studied astronomy together. He did his PhD in astronomy, much more impressive than I did. Then I I didn't do grad school, but so he did that, and then it was on machine learning in astronomy, and then now he works at ONC using that same machine learning background to analyze hydrophone data because they're doing what you're saying, Jen, with building a machine learning algorithm that is going to sort through the hundreds and hundreds of hours of audio data that we have because it's just too much for a person to listen to. But you can have a machine listen to it and try to pick out where there's actually something of interest and it's not just background noise.
Right. Very
How
cool.
how close are we to having that like functional? Like it's a
I
huge project, right?
Yeah, I'd have to ask Spencer, but when he was telling me about it before, he was like, "No, this is like what I did before for my PhD." Like he didn't seem that worried about it. So,
Like 5 years, 10 years?
no, I think it's on the order of like a year or something like that. Like I'm assuming it'll scale up from there, but I feel like it's probably already close to like there could be like a test coming pretty soon, I would say.
And I have one more question about your ship to shore programs, because I've only ever been involved from the other end. Um, I was on the JR, the Joint Resolution, and we did ship to shore, interactions with classrooms, but it was all organized from the ship. Like that was my job on the ship was to like reach out to classrooms and they would book with me. And so from what I understand about your description, you guys actually book from the shore and you book a classroom to connect with ships. Now, do you guys have like a roster of ships or do you only connect with ONC ships? Like, how does that work when you guys are on shore, like finding a ship that has that technology and capability to connect with the students?
The program has gone through a number of different iterations, Jen, and it's actually not finalized. So we've done it a whole bunch of different ways. So for example, we did the Nautilus's ship to shore program,
Right, right,
right? So and they handled the registration. We've
right,
also done ship to shore where we've had like a staff member on a ship and said, okay, that one staff member, give us half an hour of your time and we'll find a class.
right,
We don't own a ship. We don't
right,
own a large ROV. So we're doing all of our expeditions on contract. So
right.
we have to run things a little bit differently. So we kind of we make it work when there's time.
So it's like a
um,
program of opportunity. Like when you
yeah,
have
at the
available
moment.
staff and available ships, then you have it. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
at the moment, but
Hmm.
we're working on that. So again, all of the voices saying education and outreach is important.
Hmm.
Like I can give you my boss's email.
Yep,
And yeah, it's groups like this that really amplify and express that need
right.
that helps along.
Any other questions?
Kim, did you learn something new?
Yeah, I was just gonna pop
Okay.
on. I'm super excited about the ocean education Wednesdays. I think that's awesome because I remember we were kind of talking a little bit about how that could work. So I'm excited to hear that that's up and running. I hadn't seen the footage of the octopus and the crock pot before. So I was excited about that. And that's something that's like a little snippet that I can start with my class tomorrow, right? Like I can just like
Right.
show that little clip. And so I love those moments. And it's just always great. I always come back over and over again to Ocean Networks Canada stuff because it's so big, it's so overwhelming when you go on that coming
Yeah.
into this and being like, oh right, okay, they've got this program and I could bring it in here. It's just like good reminders of what's out there and how important it is to get kids with eyes on data, right? Because even with the little kids that I'm teaching this year, right, like they can make sense of some simplified data and realize that numbers are important, right? And how we can interpret that. So thank you guys. It's always so good to learn from you.
Love it. Love
Thanks,
it.
Kim.
And I think that's a great place to end for this month. So thank you guys very much for the presentation. It was great to see your faces again, and I can't wait to see you guys in person.
And there's the link, Kim, for that video for the octopus in the rice cooker. There
Oh,
you go.
cool. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. I'm going to stop recording and then I will turn the meeting off and we'll see you guys hopefully next month and hopefully this summer in Newport.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.